I keep seeing the same pattern play out every single time a big eclipse hits. Everyone rushes to cover it. Everyone talks about the intensity, the endings, the revelations, the disruption. And rightfully so, because the eclipse 2 days ago was genuinely significant. But then the day after the eclipse, and the day after that, something else quietly shows up in the sky and basically nobody mentions it, because it is not dramatic enough to make a headline. It does not have the same cinematic weight as a blood moon or a retrograde station. It just arrives, does its thing, and most people float right past it without realizing they just passed through one of the better moments of the entire month. That is what is happening today, March 5th, 2026. The Sun in Pisces is forming an exact trine to Jupiter in Cancer. And I genuinely think this is the luckiest, most expansive, most emotionally generous transit of the month, and the conversation around it is almost non-existent because everyone is still processing the eclipse. So that is what I want to get into today, what this trine actually means, why it lands so differently than what we just moved through, which signs are sitting in the sweet spot of it, and what you can practically do with this energy before it passes. Because it does pass. This is not a long, slow-moving outer planet alignment. This is a sun transit, which means the window is short and the invitation is real but time-limited. So let me actually get into it. One thing first, if this is resonating with what you have been feeling over the last couple of days, leave a like and subscribe. I do these pretty regularly, and drop finally in the comments below. I want to see who else has been waiting for the sky to give us something to work with rather than just survive. Okay, Sun trine Jupiter. Let us talk about what this actually is. Okay, so here is the thing about trines that I think gets lost sometimes in astrology content. A trine is a 120-degree angle between two planets. And in the geometry of the zodiac, that angle creates a relationship of natural ease. Not ease as in nothing matters. More like ease as in the energy flows without friction. The two planets involved are incompatible elements. They understand each other, they support each other, and whatever they are doing it in a way that tends to produce results without the same grinding resistance you get from a square or an opposition. A trine between the Sun and Jupiter specifically is the kind of aspect that astrologers historically associated with good fortune. Not luck in the sense of winning the lottery, though some traditions absolutely frame it that way. More like luck in the sense that doors open, circumstances align, the thing you have been pushing against suddenly has less resistance than it did yesterday. Energy moves, ideas land well, something you have been hoping for gets a nudge in the right direction. And the emotional quality of the day shifts, sometimes noticeably, towards something more generous. Now, what makes today's version of this particularly interesting is the signs involved. The Sun is in Pisces and Jupiter is in Cancer, both water signs. Both signs that prioritize emotional experience over logical framework. Pisces is the sign of deep feeling, intuition, what lives beneath the surface of things. Cancer is the sign of home, roots, what nourishes you, the people and places and experiences that feel like belonging. When the Sun in Pisces reaches out and forms a trine to Jupiter in Cancer, what you get is essentially a meeting between your most intuitive, spiritually open self and the part of you that knows what genuinely feels like home. That combination, on a day 2 days after a total lunar eclipse in Virgo that asked a lot of people to look honestly at what was and was not working in their daily lives, is actually a kind of gift. The eclipse did the clearing work. Today is the first real glimpse of what the clearing was for. And I want to be honest about something here, because I think it is worth saying directly. The first half of 2026 has been a lot. Saturn and Neptune conjunct in Aries in February. Mercury stationing retrograde, the eclipse season building through the end of February and then delivering that blood moon in Virgo 2 days ago. There has been a heaviness to the energy, a sense of things being asked to complete or transform, a pressure that has been genuinely demanding for a lot of people. Today is not that. Today is noticeably different. And I think people who have been in the thick of it deserve to know that the sky actually handed them something good this morning. Before we talk about what this trine delivers, I want to spend a minute on what Jupiter has been doing in Cancer, because it matters for understanding why today feels the way it does. Jupiter entered Cancer back in June of 2025, and it has been working its way through that sign ever since. It stationed retrograde in November and has been moving backward through Cancer all the way until, and here is the part worth paying attention to, March 10th, 5 days from now. Jupiter stations direct at 15 degrees of Cancer on March 10th at about 11:30 p.m. Eastern Time. So what that means is that Jupiter has been retrograde for roughly 4 months. And what planets do when they retrograde is they internalize their energy. Instead of expanding outward, Jupiter in retrograde expands inward. All that Cancerian energy, the emotional depth, the sense of what feels like home, the connection to what genuinely nourishes you rather than what just keeps you functional, all of it has been working below the surface, not producing visible results, building interior understanding. And the Sun trining retrograde Jupiter today is like the final conversation between those two energies before Jupiter turns direct and starts expressing itself outwardly again. It is a preview. It is the moment before the exhale where you take the full breath in. The internal work Jupiter has been doing in Cancer over the last 4 months, all the quiet emotional processing, all the recalibration of what you actually want and who you actually want, and who you actually want around you, and what kind of home life you are actually trying to build, that work is about to become visible. When Jupiter stations direct on March 10th, things that have felt stuck start to move again. Opportunities that went quiet come back. Emotional decisions that have been suspended in some internal waiting room finally feel ready to be made. Jupiter in Cancer direct is warm and abundant and oriented toward emotional well-being in a way that has concrete real-world expression. Not just feeling better on the inside, actually building something better on the outside. Today's Sun-Jupiter trine is the door opening a crack. March 10th is when it swings wide. And knowing that is useful because it changes how you hold what is available today. This is not a one-day blip of good energy that disappears when the Sun moves on. It is the beginning of a sustained shift that is going to feel quite different from the first 2 months of 2026. Here is something else worth noting about this trine specifically. The Sun in Pisces is moving toward Neptune and Saturn in Aries. It will conjunct Neptune in a couple of weeks, which is a different kind of energy entirely, a little more dissolving, a little more uncertain. So the clarity and generosity that the Jupiter trine is offering today is actually one of the more straightforward, open, useful moments in this Pisces season. Grab it. Use it. Do not wait for a better moment because what follows is more complex. Okay, so let me talk about who is feeling this trine the most directly, because not every sign experiences this the same way. Cancer. You are the sign of the day. Jupiter has been in your sign for almost a year now, and the Sun trining it today is lighting up your entire chart. Jupiter in your first house or conjunct a major personal planet in your chart, depending on your exact degree, is one of the more straightforwardly expansive experiences a person can have. You may have been feeling somewhat hemmed in during the retrograde, like the growth and abundance Jupiter promised when it entered your sign was present, but not quite materializing in visible ways. March 5th begins to change that, and March 10th, when Jupiter stations direct, is when it really clicks into place. If you have major placements between 15 and 18 degrees of Cancer, today is an especially direct hit. Something opens up. Not with fanfare necessarily, but in a way you will notice and remember. Pisces, the Sun is in your sign and it is forming this beautiful trine, which means you are radiating the energy of this transit right now. And with Mercury retrograde also in your sign, with Mars in your sign, with the North Node in your sign, you are carrying a lot of the sky's energy through your personal field right now. Today specifically, the Sun-Jupiter trine amplifies whatever you are working toward emotionally and creatively in a way that feels genuinely supportive. The noise of the eclipse season may have made it hard to hear what you actually want. Today is quieter, and in that quiet, if you pay attention, you can probably feel the direction more clearly than you have in a few weeks. Pisces does not need a detailed map. It needs a feeling of direction. Today offers that. Scorpio, you are in an interesting position with this trine because Jupiter in Cancer is trining your sign naturally and the Sun in Pisces is sextiling you. You are getting a double hit of supportive water energy right now. For Scorpio, the Cancer energy is landing in an area of your chart associated with values, resources, and what you actually consider yours, what belongs to you, what you are willing to work to keep and grow. If something shifted emotionally during the eclipse 2 days ago, something in your relationship to your own security or self-worth, today is the day where that shift starts to feel productive rather than just disruptive. Things that felt stuck in the Scorpio house of finances or core values for the last several months have some real movement available now. Not dramatic movement, but real, usable movement. Virgo, you just had the eclipse in your sign 2 days ago, and the lot is probably still settling. Today the Sun is in your opposite sign and trining Jupiter, which means there is a lot of water energy flowing through your relationship axis right now. Something in the one-on-one partnership area of your life, whether romantic, business or close friendship, has some genuine possibility available today. Not the eclipse energy of endings and revelations, but something warmer, a conversation that lands well, a realization about what you actually want from the people closest to you. A small but genuine moment of connection that reminds you what the eclipse was clearing space for. Now for the other signs, Taurus and Capricorn, you are the other 2 earth signs, and you are also in a sextile position to at least one of the planets in this trine today. The Sun in Pisces, sextiles. Taurus and Jupiter in Cancer, sextiles. Taurus as well, which means that the flow of good fortune today reaches you through a slightly different channel. For Taurus, it tends to show up in areas related to friends, community, and the creative projects you genuinely love working on, depending on where Cancer falls in your chart. For Capricorn, the Jupiter energy is trining your sign and landing in your home and family sector, which after a heavy few months may bring a welcome quality of warmth and emotional ease at home. And then there is Aries, which needs its own mention, because while Aries is not a water sign and is not in a naturally harmonious angle to today's trine, Venus moves into your sign tomorrow, March the 6th. And whatever the Sun-Jupiter trine opens up emotionally today, Venus in Aries arriving tomorrow brings a completely different quality of fire and directness and willingness to go after what you want. For Aries specifically, today and tomorrow together are a meaningful 2-day window. Today the water energy is offering emotional clarity. Tomorrow, your ruling energy arrives to turn that clarity into action. I want to talk about why the timing of this trine matters so much, because you cannot fully understand what today is offering without understanding what came right before it. Total lunar eclipses do specific work. They illuminate, they reveal, they bring to the surface things that have been running underground. And the eclipse in Virgo 2 days ago was particularly precise about what it illuminated. The gap between how you have been living and how you actually want to live. The habits that have been costing you. The dynamics you have been maintaining past their expiration date. The physical signals you have been rationalizing. The work situations you have been managing rather than genuinely addressing. That kind of illumination is valuable, but it is also heavy. And one of the things I notice with people going through eclipse seasons is that the intensity of what gets revealed can sometimes make it feel like everything is hard, everything is demanding, everything requires effort and honesty and transformation. And that can leave people exhausted. Not just from the eclipse itself, but from the sustained weight of a sky that has asked a lot of them. Today changes the quality of the sky, not by undoing what the eclipse revealed, but by providing something the eclipse did not: warmth, possibility, a genuine sense that the direction forward is workable and worth moving toward. The Sun in Pisces, trine Jupiter in Cancer, is not asking you to process anything difficult. It is not illuminating a gap or revealing a pattern or demanding a harder look at something. It is doing something much simpler. It is saying, here is some room, here is some possibility. Here is an emotional atmosphere that supports you doing something generative rather than just something honest. That distinction matters enormously. There is a time for the honest reckoning and a time for the building. The eclipse was the reckoning. Today is the beginning of the building. And a Sun-Jupiter trine is one of the better aspects in the entire astrological toolkit for taking the space cleared by something difficult and starting to fill it with something genuinely good. In my experience watching these cycles, the days right after a major eclipse tend to fall into two camps. Either the eclipse energy is still so thick that people are still reeling, still processing, still in the middle of whatever the eclipse moved, or the eclipse energy has passed through cleanly enough that the next thing in the sky can actually be received. March 5th is the second kind. The eclipse did its work, the emotional air has changed, and the Sun-Jupiter trine arriving today is arriving into a space that is ready to receive it. If you've been feeling lighter in the last 24 to 48 hours compared to how you felt going into the eclipse, that is not accidental. That is the exact shift I am describing. The eclipse completed. This is what comes next. There is something worth understanding about what Jupiter in Cancer is actually trying to do over this whole transit, because it gives you a more useful lens for what today's trine is offering. Jupiter expands whatever it touches. It makes more of whatever the sign it is in represents. And Cancer, at its core, is the sign of emotional security, not security in the abstract philosophical sense. Physical, embodied, relational security, the feeling of being in a place that is yours, the warmth of people who actually know you, the sense that you have enough, not just materially, but emotionally, relationally, in terms of belonging. Jupiter in Cancer has been asking a very particular question of every person it has been transiting through. The question is, what actually makes you feel at home? Not what you think should make you feel at home. Not what you have been telling yourself is enough. What actually generates that quality of warmth and belonging and sufficiency in your lived experience? That is a harder question than it sounds, because a lot of people have spent years optimizing for things that look good on paper but do not produce that feeling. They have built lives that are functional and respectable and moving in the right direction on the metrics that matter externally, and then they sit quietly at the end of the day and notice that the warmth is not quite there, that the belonging is not quite there, that something they cannot easily name is still missing, even when everything looks like it is in place. Jupiter in Cancer will not let you ignore that gap. It keeps pointing at it. And during the retrograde phase, it has been particularly insistent on the interior version of the question, what do you know, beneath the noise and the obligation and the performance, about what would genuinely nourish you? Today, the Sun trining Jupiter is like a moment of recognition between what you have been discovering inwardly and what the world is starting to make available outwardly. The interior understanding that Jupiter retrograde has been building, that sense of what you actually need and want and belong with, starts to find a shape in the world today. Not completely. Jupiter does not station direct until the 10th, but the conversation between inside and outside begins. And here is what I find genuinely meaningful about this particular combination. Pisces, where the Sun is the sign of what you reach for when logic runs out. What you trust when you cannot see clearly. What you believe in, even without evidence. And Cancer is where that faith finds its warmth, its home, its physical expression. When the Sun in Pisces trines Jupiter in Cancer, something you have been holding as an internal belief or an interior sense of what is true and possible for you starts to feel not just believable, but near. Not just spiritually true, but practically approaching. That shift in proximity is significant. Things that felt like distant hopes a month ago may feel today like they are simply waiting for you to move toward them. One more thing worth weaving in here before we talk signs. I know Mercury retrograde has been such a constant presence in the sky lately that it can feel like a blanket dampener on everything. Mercury went retrograde on February 26th, and does not station direct until March 20th. And yes, it is still worth being thoughtful about finalizing contracts or having conversations you intend as the last word on something. But Mercury retrograde is not the story of today, and I think it is important to say that clearly. Trines are actually fairly retrograde resistant because a trine does not require precise articulation to work. It creates an atmosphere, it opens doors, it reduces resistance. You will feel something open today, even if you cannot fully put it into language yet. And that is actually fitting, because Jupiter in Cancer does not specialize in language, it specializes in feeling. The Cancerian understanding does not need to be announced to be real, it needs to be felt and trusted. Mercury direct comes on March 20th. The words will be there then. For now, let what arrives today simply land. Let me get into the concrete territory, because I think this is where the trine becomes actionable rather than just atmospheric. What does a Sun trine Jupiter in water signs actually produce in real life, sign by sign? For Cancer, what opens today is primarily in the realm of self and identity. Jupiter in your sign, being trined by the Sun, lights up the way others see you, the impression you make, the natural authority and warmth you carry. Something in your outer presentation or your personal confidence may feel expanded today. A conversation where you were unexpectedly well received. An interaction where you felt genuinely seen and appreciated. Or simply an internal sense of your own value that feels less conditional than usual. That last one might sound small, but if you have been in a period of self-doubt or second-guessing, a day where your sense of your own worth feels just slightly more solid and unconditional is actually significant. For Pisces, what opens is creative and spiritual. The Sun in your sign trining Jupiter in Cancer means that whatever you are creating right now, whatever artistic, spiritual, or imaginative work you have been doing, has a particular aliveness and resonance today. If you're a writer or a musician or any kind of creative person, this is a day to sit down with the work. Not to analyze it, not to edit, but to add to it, because the flow is genuinely there. And for Pisces who are not in explicit creative work, what opens is the intuitive channel. The sense of knowing without knowing how you know. That operates at a particularly high frequency today, and the information available through it is worth paying attention to. For Scorpio, what opens has to do with resources and values. Jupiter in Cancer is trining your second house or aspecting your second house ruler, depending on your chart, and the Sun is sextiling you from Pisces. This combination can literally produce better financial outcomes. A conversation about money that goes well. A resource that becomes available. A realization about where you have been underselling yourself or undervaluing what you bring. Or something subtler, a shift in how you relate to your own material security that moves from anxious vigilance to something more spacious and trusting. For Virgo, what opens is relational. The opposite energy to you today is warm and expansive, which after an eclipse in your sign that may have clarified some difficult relational truths, creates an interesting complement. Something in a partnership, romantic or professional or close friendship, has some genuine goodwill and possibility moving through it today. It does not undo what the eclipse revealed, but it adds dimension to it. The conversation that needs to happen between you and someone important to you may feel more possible today than it did 2 days ago. For Taurus and Capricorn, what opens has to do with community and home respectively. For Taurus, today is good for things involving groups, friends, the creative communities you belong to or want to belong to. For Capricorn, the warmth and expansion are showing up in your home environment and in your relationship to your roots and family. Something in the home or family sphere feels slightly more generous and possible today than the recent weeks might have suggested. For Aries, today plus tomorrow is the combination to pay attention to. Today the water energy is offering emotional intelligence. Tomorrow Venus in Aries arrives and turns that into fire and action. Use today to feel what you actually want. Use tomorrow to start moving toward it. For Leo and Sagittarius, fire signs in natural trine to Aries, What opens today has more of a sextile quality from the water energy. Supportive, but not direct. For Leo, it tends to show up around the home and family sector as well. For Sagittarius, around shared resources and the deep emotional agreements you have with other people. Both useful, neither as front and center as the water and earth signs. For Gemini, Libra and Aquarius, the air signs, this trine is not hitting you particularly directly. But one thing worth noting, Mars in Pisces right now is in a sign that is mildly uncomfortable for Aquarius and squared to Gemini, which means the relentless Aquarian drive to intellectualize and the Gemini tendency to scatter both meet some friction from the current sky. The Sun-Jupiter trine today is an invitation for all three air signs to simply feel something without analyzing it. That is not usually the instruction air signs receive, but the water energy is high right now, and the people who benefit most from that environment are the ones willing to put the analytical framework down for a day and just notice what their emotional body is telling them. Use this stretch of time for the Cancer things, for home and family decisions, for emotional investments in the relationships that actually matter to you, for anything that involves putting down roots, creating a sense of belonging, or building the kind of security that lives not in your bank account, but in your relationships and your daily domestic experience. Jupiter in Cancer rewards those investments generously, and the window for its particular kind of generosity is closing by summer. Okay, practical time, because I think this is where astrology content often falls short. Knowing that the sky is generous today is one thing. Knowing what to do with that is another. One useful note before the list, Jupiter stations direct at 15 degrees of Cancer on March 10th, 5 days from now. So today's trine is not just a one-day event in isolation. It is the first real taste of what the next week and beyond are going to feel like as Jupiter turns outward again. If something opens today, a feeling, a possibility, a door cracking wider than it has been, that is the preview. March 10th is when the full version of that energy becomes consistently available, which makes paying attention today genuinely worth your while. First, reach out to someone today who genuinely matters to you, not an obligatory check-in, not the person you have been meaning to respond to for weeks, someone who, when you think about them, produces warmth. A Jupiter in Cancer trine day is one of the best days of the month for deepening emotional connections, for saying the thing you have been meaning to say, for bridging a gap that has been sitting between you and someone you care about. The warmth in the sky right now makes those conversations land better than usual. People are slightly more open, slightly more receptive, slightly more willing to let something genuine in. Use that. Second, take something you have been holding internally and give it a small outward expression, not a complete plan, not a formal commitment. Just a first small step toward something you have been wanting but not moving toward. The Sun-Jupiter trine creates momentum, but momentum requires an initial movement, an email sent, a conversation started, a class signed up for, a decision to move in a certain direction made even informally. The trine does not build momentum for you. It reduces the friction that was preventing you from building momentum yourself. So take one step. The energy available today will make that step feel lighter than you expect. Third, notice where you feel genuinely good today. I know that sounds simple to the point of being obvious, but there is real information in it. Jupiter in Cancer rules what nourishes. The Sun in Pisces rules what resonates at a deeper level than logic. On a day when both of those planets are in harmonious conversation, your body and your emotional field are unusually good at telling you what is actually right for you. The things that feel expansive and warm and right today are the things that are genuinely aligned with where you are going. The things that feel flat or draining today, in contrast to the generally positive atmosphere, are giving you useful information too. Treat your felt sense of things today as data. Good data, more reliable than usual. Fourth, if something crossed your mind during or after the eclipse that felt like a realization you were not quite ready to act on, revisit it today. The eclipse did the revealing. Today is the first day where the energy is genuinely supportive of moving toward what the revelation pointed to. Not forcing it, not finalizing it. Mercury retrograde is still real. But taking a genuine first look at what the eclipse showed you and asking honestly, given what I now understand, what direction do I actually want to move in? The Sun-Jupiter trine creates an atmosphere where that question can be asked without the same fear or heaviness that might have surrounded it during the eclipse itself. And fifth, rest is also legitimate use of this energy. Jupiter in Cancer is not exclusively about doing. It is also about receiving, about the wisdom of allowing. If what the eclipse left you with was exhaustion, genuine bone-level tiredness from having processed something significant, today the sky is actually supportive of recovery. Not productive recovery, just recovery. Jupiter in Cancer can be as simple as a warm meal, a conversation with someone you love, an evening at home that feels actually restorative rather than just quiet. That is not wasting the trine, that is using it in its most Cancerian form. I want to close with something that I think matters for how you carry yourself through the rest of this week and into Jupiter direct territory on March 10th. The first 2 months of 2026 were demanding. I do not think that is overstating it. Saturn and Neptune conjoined at the world point in Aries in February, which is a once in roughly 36-year event that represents a collision between structure and vision, between what we have been told is real and what we have been asked to imagine instead. Mercury went retrograde in Pisces, slowing everything down and sending people back through recent emotional history. The eclipse season built through late February and peaked 2 days ago with a total lunar eclipse in Virgo that was genuinely ruthless about illuminating what was not working. That is a lot of compressed intensity in a short window, and now the sky is different. Not completely. Mercury is still retrograde, and there is still work to be done in the next 2 weeks before the spring equinox, but the quality is shifted. The Sun-Jupiter trine today is the first genuine breath in a while. Jupiter direct on March 10th is the next one. Mercury direct on March 20th. The same day the Sun moves into Aries for the astrological new year is the full exhale. You are not through the woods yet, but you can see the other side of it now. And the energy available today, specifically on March 5th, gives you the first real taste of what the other side looks like. It looks like warmth. It looks like things opening rather than just closing. It looks like the emotional understanding you have been building through a difficult first stretch of the year, starting to find its way into your actual life in visible, tangible, usable form. That is what a Sun trine Jupiter in water signs does. 2 days after a clearing eclipse, it says, good. Now here is what all of that was preparing you for. Here is where you are actually going. Here is what the disruption was clearing space for. And honestly, after the first couple of months of 2026, I think a lot of people needed to see it. The direction has not gone anywhere. The good you have been working toward has not been cancelled by the intensity of the season. The eclipse was clarifying. The trine is confirming. Something genuinely good is still ahead. And on March 5th, with the Sun in Pisces lighting up Jupiter retrograde in Cancer for the last time before Jupiter turns direct, the sky is offering you the clearest preview of it you have had in weeks. Pay attention to how today feels. It is telling you something important about where you are headed. And where you are headed, based on everything this particular trine is offering, is towards something that feels like home. If this one helped, leave a like and subscribe and drop finally in the comments. I want to see who is ready for a good day in the sky. March 10th is 5 days out, and it is going to be worth the wait. Take care of yourselves. See you in the next one.